It's Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Please like the video, subscribe, chat, share, comment, do all the algorithmic things. So, the news this week that an active duty U.S. airman was murdered in his own apartment by a Florida sheriff's deputy, I don't think is getting the seismic reaction that it absolutely deserves. So, and let me say this. So, I'm giving you guys a content warning for the content. I'm not giving out any trigger warnings because I don't. I'm not going to show the body cam video which was released this week by Okaloosa County, the police department, or rather the sheriff's department there, because it is absolutely fucking terrible. Um, I am going to play a piece that was aired on CBS this morning. And again, can I say this? Can I confess something, y'all? I feel a bit even kind of cowardly even doing that because I am bothered by this footage. And I know maybe as viewers, there's not a whole, you got, there may not be a whole lot of rhyme or reason as to what times I will play videos and which times I won't play videos. And I know because I wrestle with it. Like what can I personally take? Okay, if I can't take it, then I don't want to subject y'all to it. But if it's a video that I can take, then y'all should be able to watch. I struggle. I do wrestle with what to do with this content. So instead of playing the body cam video directly, I'm going to play what CBS this morning played, and maybe they played too fucking much. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't make it any less traumatic if you're not seeing it all in real time. They show enough, right? But let me briefly describe it for you if I could. So there was reports of a domestic disturbance at a Fort Walton Beach apartment complex. And when the Okaloosa uh, sheriff's deputy arrived, he was receiving conflicting information about which apartment the disturbance was coming from. Now, on the inside of the apartment, you have 23-year-old Roger Dotson, who is FaceTiming with his girlfriend. And it's apparently just him alone in the apartment, and he's on a FaceTime phone call. And then the body cam video picks up with the sheriff knocking on the door. And then when the young man opens the door, by the way, because he had told his girlfriend prior to opening the door that he didn't know who was at the door, and he was confused why someone was pounding on his door. And as a person who should have the right to bear arms as an alleged citizen of this country, even though you guys know what I'm gonna say here coming up shortly. He was supposed allowed to be able to bear his sidearm in his home when he answered the door. Florida's an open carry state, but again, he wasn't out in the fucking open. He was in his house. He had every right to have his gun. Every right to have his gun. And when he opened the door for the deputy gave him no commands. The deputy did not tell him to put his hands up. The deputy did not tell him to drop his gun. As soon as Roger opened his apartment door, the deputy literally gave him 1 second before opening fire. Roger had no time to comply with anything because no one can react to any command, but there was no command given. But the reaction time in within 1 second, what was Roger to do? So I want us to hear how this is being covered, at least by the mainstream. It's been covered. It's been covered. Why it's not kind of leading the news every night? Why this is not garnered sort of the attention that the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor garnered? Exactly I'm not exactly sure, but I want us to take a look at least the way that the mainstream is putting a spin on this. So let's take a look. Let's check that out.
A deadly police shooting of an airman inside his home. This happened in Florida. Roger Fortson was killed last week by a sheriff's deputy who was responding to calls of a domestic disturbance. Now, his family says the deputy had the wrong apartment. That deputy is now on leave as the shooting is being investigated. Nikki Batiste has more. We have to warn you here. These images are extremely upsetting.
This newly released body cam video shows an Okaloosa County deputy arriving at the home of senior airman Roger Fortson's apartment door, responding to a 911 call about a domestic disturbance. The deputy knocks 3 times. After the first knock, he steps off to the side. No one answers, and he knocks 2 more times, identifying himself. The video is partially blurred.
Sheriff's office, open the door!
Seconds later, Fortson opens the door.
Step out.
He's seen holding a handgun that was legally owned, according to his family. The deputy orders him to step back, then fires.
Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
It's over there.
Drop the gun!
I don't have it.
312, shots fired. Suspect down.
Okaloosa Sheriff Eric Aiden says his department released the video to be transparent.
No determination has been made as to whether the deputy's actions were justified or not.
Fortson's mother, Mika, says her son was FaceTiming with his girlfriend during the shooting. The girlfriend told the family the deputy said something not on the body cam video released today.
They just said, oh yeah, he shot up. He shot up. My baby was shot up.
Fortson's family says he was alone and grabbed his gun only after he heard aggressive knocking on his door, peeked through his peephole and saw no one. Fortson's family claims the deputy went to the wrong apartment.
Roger was a gift from God.
He was a patriot, and so he respected authority. Why the police didn't respect him? That's the question.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Nikki Batiste.
So
Fortson,
disturbing.
yeah.
Yes. So many questions because the sheriff's deputy identified himself, but that knocking was aggressive, and the airman, a decorated airman.
Who's licensed to carry a gun.
Yes, licensed to carry a legal gun.
So I see why he got the gun.
Yeah, a disturbing call. But by the way, the footage leading up to that is a neighbor taking the sheriff's deputy to that door. And apparently it's the wrong apartment of, where this domestic disturbance, whatever the neighbor heard. So
I'm just thinking it's Mother's Day this Sunday, and his mom is,
devastated.
for the first time in her life, not going to have her baby. It's
And it
terrible.
seems extremely senseless.
yes.
Senseless only if you factor out the fact that this young man was Black and that he had a gun in his hand. And the fact that he was a legal gun owner, the fact that he was active duty military, the fact that he had the gun pointed in a downward position with his finger not on the trigger, that's what makes it senseless. Because if you factor out his race, that does make it senseless. Because if that was a white man, that would have never happened. And I hate this sort of bewilderment that mainstream media and members of the Blackness leadership love to, we have so many questions why this happened. The fuck you mean why this happened? Who the fuck only does this happen to? If this was equal opportunity police murder of legal gun owners in their homes happening on a regular basis across the racial spectrum, we can we have questions. Why does this but this doesn't happen to white folks? It doesn't. It fucking does not. Ben Crump is representing the family. And when I heard, Will, if you could get that Ben Crump clip queued up. When I heard Ben Crump's comments, if this is the civil rights leadership that bougie blacks and aspirational blacks like, you need somebody that's continually asking the white power system and structure, why does it keep doing it? Like, why does this keep the fuck? I don't have the patience, beloveds. I don't have the goddamn patience. Like, I was almost as mad listening to this Ben Crump clip that I'm about to play for y'all as I was listening to that fucking cracker ass Okaloosa County sheriff. Oh, the sheriff, by the way, asserts that his deputy did not have the wrong apartment. The sheriff, by the way, asserts that the reason that his deputy shot Roger Fortson is because he felt a need out of self-defense. Self-defense. Yes. Again, because Florida, in one of the most unregulated gun states in this country, which, by the way, in America, for our viewers abroad, is saying something. Okay, but the levels of the of as a nation of America not giving a fuck about who the fuck owns guns. Even within that, not giving a fuck, there are subdivisions of not giving a fuck and within the states, and Florida is one of those. They do not give a fuck about gun or any and everybody. It's I mean, again, to me, law enforcement should have an expectation anytime they have any sort of contact with anybody, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of socioeconomic status. In the state of Florida, law enforcement should expect everyone to be fucking packing. Be serious. How the fuck you scared of a gun not pointed at you, you fucking scalper, scrotum, skin ass, pussy ass, hoe ass cop? Anyway, let's listen to Ben Crump and let's listen to Ben Crump and we can react after we listen to the clip.
Best America had to offer. He was a patriot. He was a U.S. airman, special ops. I mean, he was fighting for our way of life.
He was fighting for everybody.
He was fighting for everybody. He graduated from high school in Atlanta, Georgia. He enlisted. He had dreams of being a pilot. He had always wanted to serve in the United States Air Force. And he was living his dream. And by doing so, he was going to make it better for his mother and his siblings and his family so they can have a better chance at the American dream.
Gang, I absolutely empathize and sympathize so deeply with this young man's family. And let me be clear here, I'm not in any way diminishing his loss at all. But what I will say is that it does not pay to serve the empire as a Black person, as some of our comrades would say, as an African person. It does not pay to serve the empire. I understand why a lot of Black folks join institutions like the U.S. military and law enforcement. I get it. It's a ladder, right? It's a ladder up. It's an opportunity, to do more depending on your circumstance, right? So it's not like I don't get it. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, this empire is founded on anti-blackness. This country is founded on it's enshrined in our founding documents that Black people are subservient and inferior, 3/5 of a person to be precise, right? Like they put a fucking fraction on the bitch. They put a number on. This is how much you niggas are inferior to white folks. Okay, it's enshrined. So there is no way that it is possible for the entity that is known as the United States of America to ever view Black people as other than that. I don't care what amendment to the Constitution, because you saw they put the little slick psych shit. They put the little psych clause in the motherfucking 13th Amendment, right? So miss me with your 13th Amendment, miss me with some of your civil rights shit, miss me with a lot of shit that America has, quote, so-called done to equalize the plight of Black folks. At the end of the day, not even serving the empire as a decorated airman, okay? Decorated. This young man was 23. He had been enlisted since 2019. He'd been in the military 5 years now, okay? And all he had to do was show up as Black in his own house allegedly asserting his constitutional rights given to him by the state, that another agent of the state who sits higher than him on the social racial hierarchy took as a threat. Look at this black man, social status unknown, but because he is bearing arms that he is legally allowed to do in his house, I have to defend myself from this black threat, because no matter how decorated, that cracker ass cop just saw him as a nigga with a gun. So he had to be a criminal. He had to be a threat. He had to be put down within 1 second of him opening that door. And unfortunately, all the platitudes that been Crump just laid upon this young man. He was a patriot. He wanted to serve his country. He wanted to do that. Yes, and none of that saved his life. Can you imagine? None of that afforded him 10 fucking additional seconds to say or do anything, to react, to comply, to do anything. This young man's desire to serve his country didn't save him from the racism of this country. Will, if you could pop up the article for me, please, because I was curious how the U.S. Air Force was responding to one of their own service members literally being gunned down by an agent of the American state on American soil. And initially, in the first few days, oh my God, that young man looks so much like my brother, guys. He looks so much like it that they favor. That shit is blowing my mind how much he looks like my brother Mike. But the Air Force was like, we don't have much to say right now. We're just providing casualty services for the family. We're trying to provide services for the family, for his unit, for his fellow airmen who were serving with him. We're just we don't really have no comment. We're going to defer the investigation to Okaloosa County which, by the way, Okaloosa County has turned over the investigation to the FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which is, I guess, their statewide law enforcement agency. So there's that part of it. But now the Air Force is saying that they're now trying to cooperate with the investigation in any way possible. And guys, when you go on like the State Department or even maybe the DOD or the Pentagon, whatever websites, sometimes they will have travel warnings for Americans. There's a number of travel warnings right now to lots of places. Well, I like places you wouldn't even think, like Bahamas and Jamaica, and there's a travel warning going to Colombia and Venezuela. There's threat of random street violence and protests, and I'm like, oh, so America, right? Like all of the travel warnings issued by America could be describing America, right? But service, members, active duty members of the military, sometimes they get particular warnings not to go places. I recall one. I had somebody I knew was enlisted in the army, and they were telling me that you could take that down. Will, they were telling me how they wanted to go to Cancun, but the branch of the military they were enlisted in forbade them to travel to Mexico because of the specific threat, I suppose, to U.S. service members. I said that to say, what kind of warnings does the U.S. military give its Black enlisted members for moving around the country that they were born in, for moving around their native country? Is there any warning given to Black enlisted military members from the U.S. military about the perils of simply existing as Black in their own native country? I want you to think about, again, we don't have no love for the military, but just it again, we know what it is. We know why our people sometimes join it. We're trying to be compassionate here, right? But I'm thinking about this young man's unit, the fellow 23-year-olds, the fellow Gen Zers, right? Whose counterparts on the political ideology or on college campuses right now trying to shut shit down, right? These kids bought into the American dream, and now that shit is slapping them right in the face. No, here's the reality of this American dream that you've signed up for, is that this shit, even you being the most dutiful, the most happy soldier, won't protect you from the vitriolic racism that is senseless. Like Gail King said, yeah, it's senseless, all right. It's senseless once you factor out the black. But when you look at the straight up optics of the situation, it makes perfect sense. Because this young man is not recognized as a full citizen, even as a defender of the empire, as a volunteer. You signed up for the army, or rather for the U.S. Air Force, but signed up for the military, and they still killed him in his own home. And this young man could not have been more innocent. Like there is no, like the fact that they're going to probably drag out some sort of investigation, to me, is a fucking joke, right? Because again, what's the this is why police reform is it in itself nonsensical, right? The body cam is right fucking there, right? I thought that was the whole point of body cams, so we could get the true and accurate picture, so police couldn't bullshit us, right? Okay, well, we got the true and accurate fucking picture. How many weeks does it take to examine what everybody could clearly fucking see? The young man was given a second, not unlike the young man in Prince George's County who we featured here, who I think was given 5 seconds after police, Prince George's County police busted in his apartment and shot him in the back after giving him an order and only giving him 5 seconds to comply. That tragedy that happened in Texas with Botham Jean, with that goofy fucking white bitch cracker ass cop who murdered him in his apartment. The dumb bitch didn't even know where the fuck she lived. There is no safe space for black folks in America. This is what I need our non-black friends to understand. Even other communities of color, well, maybe not our Latino and indigenous folks, because the police busted y'all too, okay? But sometimes folks from other communities, not just the white community, but everybody got fucking advice. Everybody got model minority advice for black people about how we could just survive America better. Well, how the fuck was this kid supposed to survive the situation any better than what he did? Being in his house, legally allowed to own his gun, trained on the fucking gun as an airman, not being the cause of the disturbance himself, and complying with the officer by opening the fucking door. What else was he supposed to do? What else could he have done different that would have saved his life? And the only thing that I can point to, the only different thing that this kid could have done, was not open the fucking door, guys. And again, and unfortunately, we have to take these situations and use them not only as learning experiences, but literal survival experiences. Unless the police announce that they have a search warrant, let me say that again. If you're black. Let me say that again if you are a black man. Let me say that again if you are a black woman. Let me say that again if you are black LGBTQ out here. Let me say that again if you have black children out here. Do not open the fucking door for the cops unless they have a warrant. We have to take extraordinary measures to protect ourselves because we're not safe in our homes. Do you understand that? The only way this looks different than it did 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 200 years ago is that usually when the lynch mob came for the black victim, they usually took them out the house, right? They usually didn't come in the house and kill them. They took them out the house to make a spectacle of them. Now the spectacle is all being documented on the body cam. The spectacle is being had nonetheless, right? And unfortunately, it's not done necessarily in front of an immediate crowd the way that they used to lynch black people back in the day, right? Now it's one-on-one lynchings, two-on-one lynchings, five-on-one lynchings. Some lynchings have witnesses, some of them don't. But the documentation now is there. I want you guys to hear what the fuck the Pentagon had to say. I talked about the Air Force, right? You would think that, Lloyd Austin, the first ever Grand Imperial Wizard of the fucking Pentagon. I'm sorry, not the Grand. Did I say Grand Imperial Wizard? Or should I say the head cracker in charge? But he's black, Kim. I understand he's black, but you got to be a cracker in order to be a black man to agree to head the U.S. fucking military. Give me a fucking break. Anyway, but who you're about to hear from is the Pentagon spokesperson, who is not Lloyd Austin. Lloyd Austin is the defense secretary. So anyway, they're going to be asked about the murder, the police murder of Roger Fortson, and this was the answer. Let's take a look.
There are plans as it relates to Rafah and addressing the Hamas threat.
Okay, and on a separate topic, on Friday, a Florida sheriff's deputy shot and killed senior airman Roger Fortson. He was in his own off-base apartment. The deputy entered the apartment, shot and killed him. Has Secretary Austin been following this? Is he concerned at all? Has he reached out to the family? And are there any kind of greater concerns about all of the military personnel that live in off-base housing when you have law enforcement coming and responding to a call?
Yeah, well, first of all, the Secretary is following this closely, and I would like to offer our thoughts and prayers to Airman Fortson's family. We are, of course, saddened at the loss of one of our own. I know that his death is currently under investigation, so I'll have to refer you to the Florida civil authorities for any questions about what happened. But we do know that his family is grieving, and we offer our sincere condolences.
Has the Secretary reached out to the family?
Down to my knowledge.
Nothing from Lloyd Austin, the first ever black man to head up the Pentagon, to head up the Department of Defense. Nothing from Lloyd Austin to the family of Roger Dodson, an active duty senior airman, special ops, this kid was, right? On his way in terms of a military career for whatever anyone places a value upon that, he seemed to be an ambitious and driven young person. Let's put it that way. I'm sad that his ambition and drive was to defend the empire. But he was trying to make something of himself. Let's put it that way. And that's apparent. And nothing from Lloyd Austin. You ain't got nothing to say? Nothing to say? So there's a long history. I'm sure you guys may or may not be familiar of black military, either active duty or veterans, being subjected to white racial violence in this country, going back World War II, World War I, the Korean War. It was not uncommon for returning black service members to be assaulted, accosted, lynched, murdered while in uniform in this country. There is no protection that the military uniform has ever afforded black folks, particularly black men. And through every single international war that this country has engaged in which black folks have served, the disillusionment that has inevitably come when they return home from, quote, fighting for freedom abroad, only to come back to Jim Crow and white violence and intentional underdevelopment of their areas, right? Like, there's no point. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay to be a cog in the empire or a sentinel for the empire, because the empire doesn't give a fuck about your equality, never, not ever. You are expendable as a body, as a life, to be sacrificed in defense of an empire as much as you are sacrificable to capitalism, for them to work you to death, right? Like, they don't give a fuck. So fuck them. So don't sign your life over to them, because they will never appreciate it. And even this fucking weak ass thoughts and prayers shit from the goddamn Pentagon spokesperson? Are you fucking kidding me? You know, I know that it's unrelated, but I see it similar for a couple of reasons, and I think I'm making a connection honestly because of the resemblance that I think that young man had to my brother. For y'all who don't know, in 2017, my brother, who was active duty Marine, was murdered not by police. Lucky for them, he was murdered by a stranger on the street. It was terrible, sad. The kid is still currently, I say kid, he's a man now, but he's still serving a sentence for manslaughter for killing my brother, right? But when the difference is obviously is that my brother was not murdered by the state, but at the same time, the similarities that I saw with this kid and what happened to my brother is just that I don't know. Maybe there's no similarities. I actually think I just lost my train of thought. The train was going by, Bagheera was barking. I was thinking about my brother, and then I was thinking about the kid's picture. And the synapses weren't firing. They didn't connect on that train of thought as the train goes by, so as it derails my train of thought. So what I want you guys to do is this. Number one, we definitely extend our condolences and our sympathies going out to Roger Dotson's family, but it is so important that we take a couple of things away from what happened here. If there is any way that you can still actively discourage young black folks in particular from joining the military, I please implore you to do so. There's no place for them there. You know what I'm saying? There is other ways to build a life, to have a life, to create a life, right? We got to get creative and be able to step in and intercede and intervene, and number one, and provide alternatives for our children from signing their lives over to the empire, because God forbid, I mean, what the fuck, if the US military decides to join Israel in clearing Palestine. Like I know black soldiers have been sent over to do wild wicked shit abroad, right? So no, we won't have our children participating in such a system, okay? And we have to, and if that's the only track that they have, Lord have mercy. That's on us. We gotta get creative out here to try to discourage them and actively dissuade them from doing that. But also the same way in which I implore folks, especially black folks, but even people who are in proximity to black folks, I implore people not to call the police on black folks, okay? Especially black people who are experiencing a mental health crisis. Don't ever do that. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, but we have to add answering the door for police just because they fucking knock. That's a no-no, everybody. That is a no. Can't do it. Can't do it. How many more examples do we need? How many more of our folks do we need to see murdered in their own houses, not doing anything wrong, fully within their right, human, civil, constitutional, and otherwise, to be existing in their house, to be ready to take a stand in defense of their home and their security? Oh my God, I just remembered the man from upstate New York, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., the veteran. The man retired from the Department of Corrections. This man served his fucking country. The damn life alert went off. The light, for the elders that they fallen, I can't get up. The life alert shit went off. The fucking punk ass. I think this happened in White Plains, New York. Do I have that right, chat? The fucking cops showed up at his door. Mr. Chamberlain told him repeatedly he was fine. Go the fuck away. I'm fine. Go away. They bust up in, kill him. Killed this elder for what? In his house for what? Enough, y'all. No answering the cop. No answering the door for the pigs. Period. If you're black, warrant, nigga. If you don't have a warrant, I need you to step the fuck off. Or even better, you don't have to even acknowledge that's your home. It is not illegal to not answer the door for the cops. You are not legally bound to do that, especially if they do not have a search warrant. It's time to start utilizing in small ways the small amount of rights that we have. We know that black people have no right to bear arms. We have no right to self-home defense, right? So knowing that, then let's stop opening the fucking door for the cops. You don't have no reason to open the door for the cops. And if you've been listening to this program, hopefully you won't call the cops. You know what I'm saying? Don't call them. And if you are a non-black person in proximity to black people and you are contemplating calling the cops, I want you to think twice and think 3 times about doing that. Because you could literally be sending the executioner to this person's door, regardless of whether or not that was your intention. You've seen it enough times. You've seen it enough where people are wholesale minding their fucking business, blissfully unaware that an executioner is coming to literally kill them. So please be mindful about the ways in which we dispatch police against black people, okay? Black people. Call police on white people all fucking day, okay? You can call the police on the whites as much as you want, okay? You know why? Because they're likely going to survive the encounter, armed or not. A black person is not guaranteed to survive an armed encounter, to survive any encounter with the police, regardless whether or not they are armed, regardless of whether or not they are in fact committing a crime, regardless of whether or not they comply or do not comply. I hope we have seen enough of these horrific, intentional. I say intentional with intention. You know what I mean? Like the police manage to find ways not to murder whites in comparable situations. I can only assume that they are intentionally murdering these black people. And the kind of training that these fucking pussy ass cops, I'm sorry, soft as scrotum skin ass cops, the kind of training that I can only assume that they intend to get at some of these soon, hopefully not to be ever built cop cities, but cop cities and cop cities in planning. Is this the kind of training that they're getting? How to be quicker on the fucking draw? Cop shot the black man in his apartment in 5 seconds. This fucking cracker sheriff's deputy shot this young black soldier in 1 second. Is that the fucking training that they gonna get? How to shoot in less than 5 fucking seconds? Kiss my fucking ass, you fucking pigs. I'm not going to even say what I really want to say because I can't think of the brother's whole name. But y'all know the brother in Charlotte, North Carolina. First name was Terry. I can't call his last name. It's a bad week for the pigs that week, guys. But the problem is they only get one bad week. We get all the rest of the other fucking bad weeks when it comes to police versus black folks. Anyway, gang.